safe and removed. You never get hung up. Never.
Well, my son that I mentioned earlier got married about a year and a half ago, and I was honored to be able to write a poem for him and for my daughter-in-law. A wedding poem. Wedding poems are called epithalamiums. This is one of those. And it's called Breathlessness. The night stars make a shore of sand in the summer sky, a brilliant beach of the impossible. You have found this place in each other, not far away, but up close. Found it in the stopped moment in which you now live, a hand inside a hand, a look that sees what the other sees, ears that hear one song, a love alive inside heartbeat and deep breath and dark hair. This place is yours now, the broad shore of a new world. It is your abiding gift to each other to know that when together you close your eyes, it is the closed eye that sees farthest. To know how, in the stopped moment, it is breathlessness, not breathing, that defines you. As you stand in this imagined, now real place of yourselves, you are for each other, more alive, more present. No greater adventure than each other. I'm teaching a course. I've taught a course since the 1970s on magical realism. We heard the Erasure poem based on Garcia Marquez's Cien Años de Soledad. And when I talk about magical realism, people jump immediately to ghosts. But it's the word realism in magical realism that carries the real working weight of how that might be defined. And so, nevertheless, people jump to ghosts, and I have to deal with it. I talk about it. And for a long time, I tried to come to terms with this, and finally saw, remembered, reimagined my own ghosts and how real they were. There are two names, and this is called When There Were Ghosts. I grew up on the border in Nogales. This has to do with growing up there in that time. There are two Mexican film stars, Maria Felix and Pedro Armendáriz. When you come to them, that's who they are. When There Were Ghosts. On the Mexico side in the 1950s and 60s, there were movie houses everywhere. And for the longest time, people could smoke as they pleased in the comfort of the theaters. Anybody remember that? You could smoke in movie houses? Okay. The smoke rose, and the movie told itself on the screen and in the air both. The projection caught a little in the wavering mist of the cigarettes. In this way, every story was two stories, and every character lived near its ghost. Looking up, we knew what would happen next before it did, as if the movie were dreaming itself, and we were part of it, part of the plot itself, and not just the audience. And in that dream, the actors' faces bent a little, hard to make out exactly in the smoke, so that Maria Felix and Pedro Armendariz looked a little like my aunt and one of my uncles. And so they were. And so were we all in the movies, which is how I remember it. Popcorn in hand, smoke in the air, gum on the floor, those Saturday nights. We ourselves were the story and the stuff and the stars. We ourselves were alive in the dance of the dream. I think Chelsea mentioned weather earlier in one of her poems. And I'm probably the only one here, but last couple of years I've been having some trouble with my hearing. And so this is about listening. This is what happens when you have trouble with hearing. This is called Weekend Weather. I misheard the weatherman say there was rain and a chance of lizards this weekend. I knew I had misheard it, but still, I knew too never to take anything for granted, never to assume, which makes a you-know-what out of you and me. Thank you, Miss Lee in second grade. What I heard, it was silly, perhaps, but I looked around anyway, at least once or twice during the day as I carefully crossed the very dry street. This is a place of lizards, after all, and the news as I heard it was not impossible. Blizzards somewhere else, but lizards here. Very possible. My childhood, after all, was made of them. I remember a summer of migrating tarantulas, and I think they would have made the news similarly. Rather than mishearing, perhaps I heard news meant only for me. Sometimes that's how the world is, speaking in whatever voice it can find. A chance of lizards for me, and me ready for them. Old friends, old friends. I read that poem for my son and his wife, and I've mentioned my grandmother, Refugio. Let me read a poem about my grandmother and my grandfather, and this took me a long time to figure out how they used to kiss, which was difficult because my grandfather was dead before I was born. So how I saw them kissing and that they were kissing all the years I was growing up was an epiphany to me. This is called Teodoro Luna's Two Kisses. Mr. Teodoro Luna, in his later years, had taken to kissing his wife, not so much with his lips as with his brows. This is not to say he put his forehead against her mouth, but rather he would lift his eyebrows once quickly, not so vigorously he might be confused with the villain famous in the theaters, but not so little as to be thought a slight movement, one of accident. This way he kissed her, often and quietly, across tables and through doorways, sometimes in photographs, and so through the years themselves. This was his passion that only she might see. The chance he might feel some movement on her lips toward laughter.